My name is Clara, and this is the story I never thought I'd tell. Not because I'm hiding it, but because sometimes the truth hurts more than silence. Before everything changed, my life was simple. I lived alone in a small, quiet town surrounded by trees and warm cafes. I worked at a local bookstore, tucked between a flower shop and a bakery that always smelled like cinnamon. I liked it that way, quiet, uneventful. My world was pages and coffee and soft conversations with strangers. And then everything unraveled. I need to start by saying this. I never intended to hurt anyone, least of all Myra, my older sister. She was my closest person in the world, my example, my safe place. If you'd asked me back then who I admired most, I would have said her without even blinking. Myra was the kind of woman people noticed, not because she was loud, but because she had that quiet confidence, like she knew exactly who she was. People trusted her, looked up to her. She was beautiful, yes, with her dark curls and the way her eyes lit up when she laughed. But more than that, she was solid, dependable, certain. She had a husband. His name was Elias, and for the longest time, they seemed perfect together. They had a life that looked like it came from a magazine, dinners with friends, weekend trips to wine country, smiling photos beneath golden autumn trees. I visited them often. Their house was always filled with light, music, laughter. Myra would hold Elias' hand like she never wanted to let go. I thought, that's love. That's what it's supposed to be. But what do we really know about people? Even those we love the most. Sometimes, not enough. From the moment I met Elias, I felt something I didn't want to feel. He was charming, thoughtful, always present in conversation. You know how some people make you feel like you're the only one in the room when they talk to you? That was Elias. And maybe I was just lonely. Maybe I was too used to being overlooked. But when he smiled at me, not the way a man smiles at his sister-in-law, but in that warm, human way, I felt something shift inside me. I buried it, of course. I pushed it down so deep, I hoped it would disappear. He was my sister's husband. He was supposed to be off limits, but feelings, they don't care about rules. And over time, it became harder and harder to lie to myself. Not that anything happened. Not yet. But the feeling was there, growing quietly, like a plant in the dark, reaching for light. And then, one evening, everything I believed about Myra changed. We had dinner together. It was normal. Chicken with lemon and thyme. Wine. Laughter. Elias went to bed early. He had an early flight the next morning. Myra stayed up to finish her book, and I offered to help with the dishes before heading home. The house was quiet as I moved through the hallway. Then I heard her voice, soft, low, almost like a whisper. I stopped. I didn't mean to eavesdrop, I really didn't, but the tone caught me. She was on the phone. He's asleep, she said. Don't worry, Elias will never know. I froze. I didn't need to hear anything else. I knew the woman I looked up to, trusted, was keeping a secret, a big one. That night, I walked home in the cold with my coat open, not feeling anything. Everything felt unreal. From that night on, I saw things differently. I saw Elias differently, not as the perfect husband to my sister, but as a man who was being lied to, betrayed, hurt, and didn't even know it. He didn't deserve that. I told myself I wouldn't interfere. It wasn't my place, but I couldn't forget what I heard, and I couldn't forget him. It started small. He came into the bookstore one rainy afternoon, said he was in the area, and thought he'd stop by. We talked about novels, about how rainy days made you want to reread old favorites. It was innocent, but something passed between us. A moment too long, a look too honest. He came back the next week, then again, and again. Sometimes he bought a book. Sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he just sat at the back table with a coffee and asked me how I was, not in a polite way, in a way that meant, I'm really listening. One day he said something I couldn't forget. You know, he said, almost to himself, home doesn't feel like home lately. It's like we're in the same room, but far apart. I looked at him, at the sadness in his eyes. He wasn't angry. He wasn't blaming anyone. He was just lost. And somehow, so was I. Was it wrong to want to make him feel seen? Was it wrong to be the person who cared? I don't know, but it felt real. He made me feel like I mattered, like I was visible. For so long, I had lived in the shadow of my sister's brightness. But with Elias, I wasn't a shadow. I was someone. And that's how it began, with small kindnesses, quiet talks, and a growing feeling that neither of us could name yet, but it was there. One evening, the rain was loud against the windows. The store was almost empty. Elias walked in with his coat soaked and eyes tired. He looked like he hadn't slept in days. We talked for a long time. Then, before he left, he hugged me. It was brief, but not polite, not casual. It was the kind of hug that says, I needed this. I needed you. I stood there for a while after he left, the door still gently swinging behind him. My heart was loud in my chest, louder than the rain. A few weeks passed. I told myself I was just being a friend, that I was offering comfort, a listening ear. But the truth was, I looked forward to seeing him, to hearing his voice, to the way his eyes softened when he talked to me. One night, very late, I heard a knock at my door. The sky outside was dark and heavy, the kind of night where everything feels too quiet. When I opened the door, it was Elias. He looked tired, hollow almost. His eyes were red like he'd been crying. He didn't speak at first. I didn't ask questions. I just said softly, come in. I made tea. We sat on my couch in the dim light. The air between us felt fragile, like a glass that could break at any sound. He held the cup, but didn't drink. His hands trembled a little. Finally, he said, we had a fight tonight, Myra and I. He paused. It was bad. I stayed quiet. He looked at me, not just with his eyes, but with everything he had left, like he was asking to be understood without having to explain. "I feel so alone," he whispered. "It's like I'm there, but not really seen anymore, like I'm standing behind glass." I didn't know what to say, so I just placed my hand over his. Warmth passed between us. He didn't pull away. "Why can't it be you?" he said softly, almost like a thought escaping. "Why does it have to be so wrong?" My heart beat so hard I thought he could hear it. Then he kissed me, slowly, gently, but full of everything we had both kept locked inside for so long. When our lips touched, I felt my whole world tilt. Everything I'd pushed away, everything I'd tried not to feel, rushed forward like a wave. I couldn't stop. It wasn't a fairy tale kiss. It was messy, painful, beautiful in a broken kind of way. I knew it was wrong, but in that moment, it also felt like the most honest thing in my life. After that night, we became something else, something we had to hide. It didn't feel like a movie. There was no music, no beautiful montages, only quiet cafes, hidden glances, and early morning goodbyes. We were careful. We had to be. If someone saw us, if Myra ever found out, it would destroy everything. But love doesn't live well in the shadows, and secrets, they grow heavier with time. Elias would come to my apartment after work. He said he was staying late at the office. He brought books, stories, little gifts, and sometimes he brought nothing but silence. We'd sit together, talk, hold hands, sometimes just sit, like two people trying to build something real out of something broken. But I couldn't stop thinking about her, about Myra. I remembered the way she used to braid my hair when we were girls, how we'd share secrets under the covers, whispering in the dark, how she always stood up for me when someone was unkind. Now, she didn't even know I had taken the one person she trusted most. Was it really love if it cost someone else their peace? One night, Elias fell asleep on my couch, his head on my lap. I watched him breathing softly, and I asked myself, is this love or just loneliness wearing love's clothes? It happened on a Tuesday. I wasn't expecting anyone. I was folding laundry when the doorbell rang. I opened it, and there she was, Myra. She looked calm, but her eyes were like frozen rivers. "I was nearby," she said flatly. "Thought I'd drop in." My heart pounded. "Of course," I said, forcing a smile. "Come in." She walked in slowly, looked around. Her eyes scanned the room like she was searching for something. And then they stopped, on the chair, where Elias' jacket was hanging, dark navy blue, his favorite. He'd left it the night before. Myra stared at it, didn't speak, didn't move. Then, "Whose jacket is that, Clara?" Her voice was soft, too soft. I froze. I thought of lying, saying it belonged to a friend, to a neighbor, to anyone else. But the truth had lived inside me too long, and suddenly I couldn't carry it anymore. "It's Elias," I whispered. She didn't cry, not at first. She just closed her eyes. When she opened them again, they were different. full of something I couldn't name. Why is his jacket here? I didn't answer, not right away. She stepped closer. Tell me, she said, her voice shaking. Tell me now. I looked down, and I told her everything. When I looked up, she was crying, big, silent tears. You're my sister, she whispered. How could you? After that day, nothing was the same. Myra left Elia's. She packed her things and moved out of their home within a week. She didn't say goodbye to me. She didn't call. She didn't even send a message. The last words she ever spoke to me were, "You were my sister," past tense. And just like that, I lost her. The news reached our parents quickly. They didn't scream, but their silence was louder than any shouting could have been. When my mother finally called, her voice was flat. How could you, Clara? That was all she asked. She didn't wait for an answer. My father said he was ashamed. He told me I disappointed everyone who ever believed in me. I tried to explain that it hadn't started the way they thought, that it was more complicated than it looked. But the truth is, no one wants to hear the reasons when the wound is too deep. So I stopped trying. Family dinners ended. Holiday invitations stopped coming. My phone stayed silent more days than not. I had Elia's, but somehow I had never felt more alone. He moved in with me not long after Myra left. At first, I thought it would feel right, natural, like a new beginning. But reality was quieter than I imagined. We weren't hiding anymore, but there was no celebration, no freedom, just us, and the heavy quiet that filled every corner of my apartment. Elias brought his things in small boxes, his clothes, his favorite books, his old record player. We made space for his toothbrush in the bathroom, his mugs in the kitchen. But we couldn't make space for peace. He looked tired most days, distracted. Sometimes he'd sit on the edge of the bed for a long time in the morning, staring out the window. He never mentioned Myra, but I could see it. The grief. It lived in his shoulders, in the way he sighed without noticing, in the quiet apologies that never left his mouth. One night, I found him in the kitchen, holding one of the mugs Myra had gifted him years ago. He didn't say a word, and I didn't ask. We ate in silence that night. No music, no laughter, just forks clinking against plates. I thought being with him would feel like home, but sometimes I looked at him and wondered, was he still hers, just living in my space? I hated that thought, but I couldn't stop it. Love isn't supposed to feel like this, is it? Isn't it supposed to make you feel full, warm, whole? But all I felt was haunted by the look in Myra's eyes, by my mother's silence, by the absence of old friends who no longer called. Even at night, lying beside Elias, I felt like I was floating alone in the middle of a dark lake. He was right there, but we weren't there. Not really. And that's the thing people don't tell you. Sometimes, getting what you wanted most can be the loneliest feeling in the world, because when the cost is too high, joy becomes quiet. It shrinks under the weight of guilt. And when you close your eyes at night, all you see is what you lost along the way. A year passed. We stayed together. We tried to build something from the ashes. One afternoon, Elias said, "Maybe we should get married." It wasn't romantic. It wasn't with music or a ring or a perfect sunset. It was quiet, a suggestion, like a step we were supposed to take. I said yes, not because I was sure, but because maybe, just maybe, it would help us begin again. Our wedding was held in a city office building. 3 friends came. There were no flowers, no speeches, no tears of joy, just quiet smiles, polite claps, and empty chairs where my family should have been. My parents didn't come. Neither did Myra. When I looked at the empty rows, my throat tightened. This wasn't the wedding I'd dreamed of as a girl. This wasn't how it was supposed to be, but it was real. It was ours. And I held Elias' hand as we said, "I do," with a mixture of love and grief. We were married now, but something in me had changed. Some days, I looked at Elias and felt a quiet peace. Other days, I looked at him and wondered if I was just a refuge. A place he ran to when Myra's door closed behind him. I never asked if he still thought about her, because I didn't want to know the answer. I wanted to believe that love could heal everything. But I've learned something. Love is not always a cure. Sometimes it's a question, and not all questions have answers. Late at night, I'd lie awake beside him, staring at the ceiling, wondering, was this the ending I wanted, or just the one I deserved? People say time heals. Maybe it does. But some wounds don't close completely. Some stories stay open at the edges, like books that never find their final chapter. I still think about Myra, about the sound of her laugh when we were little, about how she looked at me the last time we stood in the same room. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me, but I hope someday she might understand that I didn't set out to betray her, that love, in its rawest form, doesn't always make sense. It's messy, chaotic, full of mistakes and longing and questions. And sometimes, love leads us down roads we were never meant to walk. Now, I wake up beside Elias every morning. We make coffee, water the plants, read in silence. It's not perfect, but it's ours. And every day I choose to stay, even with the ghosts, even with the guilt, because maybe that's what love is too. Not the fairy tale, but the choosing, over and over, even when it's hard, even when the past still whispers in the corners of the room. I still wonder sometimes, does he miss her? Does she still hate me? But those answers no longer shape me, because I'm learning to live inside the life I created, with all its cracks, its shadows, and its fragile, honest beauty. And maybe that's the quiet